Walk away silently. A Stoic mindset guide. The most powerful thing you will ever do is nothing. No confrontation. No final speech. No dramatic goodbye. No long explanation of everything they did wrong. No waiting for them to understand. No hoping they will chase you and finally say the words you needed to hear. Silence. Just you turning around and walking away. Most people will never do this. Not because they are weak, but because everything in us has been trained to fight for closure, to demand acknowledgement, to stay in the burning building a little longer, convinced that if we just find the right words, something will finally change. But the Stoics knew something that took most of us a lifetime to learn. The loudest statement you can make is the one you never say. And on this channel, we talk about the kind of strength that does not need an audience. The kind of power that does not announce itself. The philosophy that transforms how you live, not through noise, but through clarity. If this is your first time here, subscribe right now. Every week I put out content built to change the way you think, protect your peace, and build the kind of character that lasts. Hit subscribe, and let us go deeper. Part 2. Why we cannot walk away. Before we talk about walking away, we have to be honest about why it is so hard. Because if it were simple, you would have done it already. You already know, somewhere deep in you, that this situation, this relationship, this job, this dynamic, this version of yourself you keep returning to, is not serving you. You have known for a while, and yet you are still here. Why? Because we were taught that leaving is failure. We absorbed a story early in life. The people who walk away are quitters. The strong ones stay. They endure. They fix things. They fight for relationships. And so we attach our identity to persistence, even when what we are persisting through is something that should have ended long ago. Because we are addicted to the hope of change. The human brain is extraordinarily skilled at finding evidence for what it wants to believe. And we want to believe that the person who hurt us is capable of being who we need them to be. So we focus on the good moments. The apologies. The brief windows where things felt like they used to. We tell ourselves, this time will be different. We stay for the version of them that shows up occasionally, and endure the version that shows up most of the time. Because we confuse familiarity with love. After enough time in any dynamic, healthy or not, the brain begins to register it as home. Not because it is good, because it is known. Walking away means stepping into the unknown. And the unknown, to a nervous system trained on familiarity, feels more dangerous than the pain of staying. Because we want them to know they hurt us. This one is the most honest and the hardest to admit. Part of why we stay, part of why we argue and explain and make our case again and again, is because we need them to understand what they did. We want the acknowledgement, the apology, the moment where they finally see us clearly. We are not just staying for them. We are staying for the verdict, for the justice we believe we are owed. Because silence feels like letting them win. Walking away quietly feels like giving them the last word. Like they get to walk away unscathed while we carry everything. Like our pain meant nothing because we never made them feel it. And so we stay. We argue. We send one more message. We give one more chance. All in service of a verdict that may never come. The Stoics had a word for all of this: attachment to externals. Epictetus taught that our suffering is almost never caused by what happens to us. It is caused by our attachment to how we need it to turn out. We need them to apologize. We need them to change. We need them to understand. We need closure from a source that is not capable of giving it. And that need, that desperate, human, entirely understandable need, is what keeps us in the burning building. Part 3. What the Stoics understood about silence. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth for nearly 2 decades. He was surrounded, constantly, by people who lied to him, flattered him, tested him, betrayed him, and misunderstood him. Senators who plotted. Generals who failed him. A wife whose loyalty historians still debate. A co-emperor who undermined him. People who took his generosity as weakness. And yet, he did not write screeds of anger. He did not compose public condemnations. He did not demand that history record his grievances. He wrote privately to himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He walked away, again and again. Not physically, he had an empire to run, but internally. He refused to give his peace to people who had not earned it. He refused to let their smallness determine the size of his response. That is the Stoic understanding of silence. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not suppression. Silence is not giving up. Silence is the decision that your peace is worth more than their acknowledgement. The 3 Stoic principles behind walking away. The dichotomy of control. Epictetus divided all of reality into 2 categories: things within our control and things outside it. Within our control, our thoughts, our judgments, our choices, our responses. Outside our control, everything else. What they think of us. Whether they apologize. Whether they change. Whether they ever understand what they did. When you stay in a situation trying to control the uncontrollable, trying to force understanding, force change, force closure, you are not being strong. You are wasting the only resource you actually have, your own inner life. The reserve clause. The Stoics practiced what they called the reserve clause, committing to action while remaining unattached to outcome. You do what is right. You say what is true. You give what you genuinely have to give. And then you release the outcome. You do not grip it. You do not chase it. You do not make your peace conditional on receiving what you hoped for. This is not passivity. It is the deepest form of strength. Acting fully, and then releasing the result to whatever it will be. Memento mori. Remember you will die. The Stoics kept death close. Not as morbidity, but as clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what is left and live it properly." Every moment you spend in a dynamic that diminishes you is a moment that does not come back. Every argument you stay in trying to extract an apology from someone who will not give it is a moment of your one life, gone. The Stoic practice of memento mori is not dark. It is liberating. It says, your time is too precious to spend waiting for someone else to give you permission to feel okay. If this is resonating, if something in here is unlocking a door you have been standing in front of for a long time, subscribe to this channel. This is the work we do here every single week. Hit subscribe and hit the bell. You will want to come back for more of this. Part 4. The anatomy of a silent exit. Let us talk about what walking away silently actually looks like. Because it is not just a decision. It is a practice. It happens in layers. And most people try to skip straight to the end, the final silence, without doing the internal work that makes the silence real instead of just suppressed. Layer 1. The internal decision. Before anything else, before you change your behavior, before you reduce contact, before you say anything or stop saying anything, there is a moment of internal clarity. A moment where you stop negotiating with yourself. Where you stop saying, maybe if I just try this one more thing. Where you look at the situation with the cold, honest eyes of someone who is finally done. This moment does not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet. A small, still voice that says, this is not working, it is not going to work, and I am done pretending otherwise. Honor that moment. Write it down if you need to, because the mind is very good at walking back from it. At finding reasons to try again. At telling you that you are being too harsh, too cold, too quick to give up. You are not. That voice of clarity is not cruelty. It is wisdom. Layer 2. Stopping the explanation. One of the hardest parts of walking away silently is stopping the urge to explain yourself. We want them to understand why we are leaving. We want to give them the full picture, the list of things that hurt us, the moments we needed them and they were not there, the pattern we've been watching build for months or years. We want to hand them our pain in a way that finally makes them feel the weight of it. But here is the truth the Stoics understood deeply. People who were not listening when you were speaking will not suddenly hear you when you are leaving. The explanation is not for them. It is for you. It is one last attempt to get the acknowledgement you needed all along. And when it does not come, When they dismiss it or turn it back on you or use it as ammunition, you are left more wounded than before. Stop explaining. Your reasons are yours. You do not need them ratified. Layer 3. Reducing without announcing. Walking away silently does not always mean a single dramatic exit. Sometimes it is a gradual, deliberate reduction. You stop being as available. You stop volunteering information. You stop reaching out first. You stop doing the emotional labor of keeping the connection alive when you are the only one doing it. You do not announce this. You do not say, "I am pulling back to see if they notice." You simply redirect your energy to things that matter, to people who reciprocate, to the life you have been putting on hold while you waited for the situation to become something it is not. Many people will not notice immediately, and that itself will tell you something important. Layer 4. Holding the line when they push back. This is where most people break. Because when you start to pull away, when the silence becomes real, something often happens. They show up. They reach out. They offer the version of themselves you always wanted. They ask questions they never asked before. They say the things you needed to hear months ago. And everything in you wants to believe it. Wants to say, "This is the change I was waiting for. This is the proof that it was worth staying." The Stoics called this the test of resolve. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "Do not be turned from your path by the opinion of others, or their provocation, or their gentleness. Stay the course you have set for yourself." This moment, when they suddenly soften just as you begin to walk away, is not always genuine transformation. It is often the dynamic protecting itself. The pattern trying to survive. Stay clear. The decision you made in your moment of internal clarity was real. Honor it. Layer 5. The silence itself. And then there is the silence. Not hostile silence. Not the silence of the cold shoulder or the punishment. The silence of someone who has made peace with a decision and has nothing left to argue about. This silence looks different from the outside than it feels from the inside. From the outside, it can look cold. Indifférent. Like you stopped caring. But from the inside, if you have done the work of the previous layers, it feels like stillness. Like the moment after a storm when the air finally clears. You are not silent because you have nothing to say. You are silent because you have already said everything that needed to be said to yourself. And that was the only conversation that ever really mattered. Part 5. What you are walking toward. We spend so much time talking about what we are walking away from. The relationship that took more than it gave. The friendship that only flowed one direction. The job that treated you as a function rather than a person. The version of yourself that kept shrinking to fit into spaces that were never built for you. But the Stoics were never interested in just leaving things behind. They were interested in building something. Seneca wrote, "Retire into yourself as much as you can. Mix with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those who you are capable of improving." The process is a mutual one. People learn as they teach. Walking away is not the destination. It is the clearing of space for the destination. You are walking toward yourself. The person you have been in this dynamic, the one who explained too much, tolerated too much, hoped too much, is not the fullest version of you. It is the version shaped by what the situation demanded. When you walk away, you begin the slow, strange, deeply important process of remembering who you are outside of it. Your preferences, your rhythms, your standards. The things that make you feel alive that you stopped doing because they did not fit into the relationship. You are walking toward discernment. One of the gifts of going through something that required you to finally walk away is what it teaches you about yourself. About the patterns you accepted. About the early signs you missed or ignored. About the gap between what you said your standards were and what you actually tolerated. This is not self-criticism. This is education. The Stoic practice of examining your own judgments, asking why you believed what you believed, why you stayed as long as you did, is one of the most valuable things you can do. Not to punish yourself. To become someone who recognizes this earlier next time. You are walking toward genuine connection. Chronically one-sided dynamics do not just take your time and energy. They also crowd out the space where real connection could grow. When you are pouring yours into something that cannot hold water, you have nothing left for the people and opportunities that could actually receive you. Walking away creates the vacancy, and nature abhors a vacuum. The people and experiences meant for who you actually are cannot find you while you are fully occupied performing for who someone else needed you to be. You are walking toward your own standard. Marcus Aurelius returned again and again to a single question in his private journals. Am I doing what a person of good character would do here? Not, am I being liked? Not, am I being understood? Am I being who I actually want to be? When you walk away from something that required you to compromise your character, your honesty, your self-respect, your values, you are not just removing yourself from a situation. You are returning to your own standard. You are choosing to be the person you respect over the person who is accepted. Part 6. The grief of walking away. I want to talk about something that most videos like this one skip over entirely. Walking away hurts, even when it is right. Even when it is long overdue. Even when every rational part of you knows it was necessary. Walking away from something you cared about carries grief. And that grief deserves to be named, not bypassed. The Stoics were not machines. They did not teach the suppression of emotion. Epictetus lost people he loved. Marcus Aurelius buried children. Seneca was exiled, betrayed, and eventually forced to take his own life. These were not men who lived at a safe distance from pain. What they taught was not the absence of grief. It was the refusal to let grief become a permanent residence. You are allowed to miss what it was. Walking away from a relationship, a friendship, a partnership, a family dynamic, does not require you to pretend it was entirely bad. Most of the things we need to leave had real moments. Real warmth. Real possibility. You can miss the good parts. You can mourn the version of the future you had imagined. That grief is not weakness. It is the natural cost of having cared genuinely. You are allowed to be angry. Anger is data. It is telling you that something of value was violated. The Stoic approach is not to suppress the anger but to understand it, to let it inform your clarity without letting it run your decisions. Feel it fully. Then let it metabolize into something useful. The commitment to hold a higher standard going forward. You are allowed to be uncertain. There will be moments, especially in the early silence, where you wonder if you did the right thing, if you were too quick, if one more conversation might have changed things. This uncertainty is normal. It is not a sign that you were wrong. It is a sign that you were invested. Hold your internal decision with both firmness and gentleness. You can be certain in your choice without being certain that it did not cost you something real. You are not allowed to make the grief a reason to go back. This is the line. The Stoics were clear: acknowledge what you feel, but do not let it override your judgment. The grief of missing someone is real. It is not the same as evidence that you should return to something that was diminishing you. The mind and body will sometimes confuse the two. Name the difference. Honor the grief. And keep walking. Part 7. How to stay gone. The decision to walk away is one thing. Staying gone is another. Because the mind is not loyal to your peace. It is loyal to the familiar. And the familiar, no matter how painful, will call you back. Again and again. With memories. With what-ifs. With the sudden urge to reach out at 11 p.m. just to see. Remove the friction points. If you need distance from someone, create actual physical and digital distance. Unfollow. Mute. Remove them from the feeds and platforms where you will encounter them without choosing to. This is not pettiness. It is architecture. You are building an environment that supports your decision rather than constantly testing it. Fill the space with something real. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the human mind. If you walk away from something that consumes significant time and emotional energy, and you fill that space with nothing, the mind will fill it for you, usually with rumination and regret. Be deliberate. Invest the freed energy into something that grows you. A project. A practice. A relationship that gives back. Do not leave the space empty. Do not audit their life. One of the most corrosive things you can do after walking away is check on them. Their social media, their new relationships, what they are doing and who they are doing it with. This is not curiosity. It is the wound keeping itself open. What they do after you leave is genuinely not your business anymore. Protect your peace by protecting your attention. Practice the Stoic evening review. Each night, Marcus Aurelius reviewed his day not to judge himself harshly but to see clearly. Ask yourself, did I act with integrity today? Did I honor the decision I made? Did I move forward or did I drift back? Not as punishment. À calibration. Small daily honesty keeps the larger resolve intact. Let time do its work. Seneca wrote that time heals what reason cannot. There will be a day, and it comes for everyone who does the work, when the pull of the familiar simply becomes quieter. When the memory loses its charge. When you think of the situation not with longing or anger but with a kind of neutral clarity. You are not there yet. But you will be. Keep walking. There is a story about Cato of Utica, one of the most admired Stoics in Roman history. At the end of his life, surrounded by the collapse of everything he had built and believed in, facing a future under the rule of a man whose power he had opposed for years, Cato did not make a speech. He did not write a final letter of condemnation. He did not demand that history record his suffering. He simply made his decision. And he was quiet. I am not telling you to be Cato. His story is extreme and his circumstances were unlike anything most of us will face. But the principle in it is one worth carrying. There are moments in life where the most dignified thing, the most powerful thing, the most deeply human thing is to stop speaking, to stop explaining, to stop fighting for a verdict from a court that was never going to rule in your favor, and to simply walk. Not in bitterness, not in defeat, not in the performance of someone who wants to be watched leaving, but in the quiet, settled certainty of someone who knows their own worth, who has decided that their peace is not negotiable, who understands that some chapters do not end with resolution, they end with release. You do not need their understanding to move forward. You do not need their apology to heal. You do not need to win the argument to have been right. You just need to walk. Quietly. Deliberately, with your head up and your heart open to whatever comes next. The silence is not the end. It is the beginning. If this video gave you something today, a little more clarity, a little more courage, a little more permission to finally choose yourself, subscribe to this channel. This is the work we do here. Every single week. Building the kind of inner strength that does not need an audience. Hit subscribe. Share this with someone who is standing at a door they know they need to walk through, and I will see you in the next one. Walk away silently, and never look back.